Dear friends of Ukraine, dear friends and follower on Pax Europiana, the podcast for peace in Europe, we have now 1,000 years of full-scale war, and that's why of Russia against Ukraine. I make this video here to mark that tragic occasion, and I call for peace. But peace, of course, by victory. Victory! We don't want to submit to the Russian disaster of terror, horror and genocide. Russia is a terrorist state, and they have openly aggressed a European peace order in February of now it's already 2.5 years ago. And this country is a danger for us, and obviously we must win. And we must win how? Now the release of the rockets from America for the usage of strike deep into Russia is a very good decision. I'm actively campaigning for that since 2.5 years, and it's very, very good. We should give all our weapons to Ukraine. We don't need tanks in Austria or Germany. The Russians have to cross Ukraine first. So there is the battlefield. They need the battle tanks now. Let's give it to them and let's produce new ones. We behave like totally incompetent children. This is absolutely unacceptable. We have the industrial capacity to produce tanks and airplanes, so let's go and do it. Biden has started Lend-Lease. 2.5 years. In this period, from the start of Lend-Lease 1940 to 42, America has flooded the world with tanks and airplanes and all the necessary material. And where are we today? We need help from South Korea. Actually, where is South Korea? I called for South Korea since 2 years to help us. Yeah, at diplomatic academies, I might remember when the diplomats from South Korea were there. Does it need really North Korea to send troops to Ukraine, into Russia there, in order that we start to mobilize our joint industrial capacity of the industrial world? I'm really actually disappointed by the slow snail space level of our mobilization, because obviously we are at war, and obviously we must win this war, and we must win it now. We should have won it in 2023. But Jack Sullivan and his escalation managers and the Obama clique in the White House, they have stopped us from winning. And all this kind of considerations. Yeah, Russia, Russia, Russia. This is a bit too much here. Russia is a failed state. Yeah? It's a terrorist state. It's a colonial empire which is suppressing her own people and has completely unjust situation. How can the Democratic Party of America support Russian unity or Russian oligarchy? This is absolutely crazy. Just in the name of some kind of stability or peace, this is entirely unacceptable. So we need definitely to mobilize all our industrial physical resources for the victory of Ukraine, and Russia must be defeated by being removed from Crimea and from, I'm very honored to have the Crimean Tatar tie here, because I will definitely carry it until the liberation of Crimea, and it will come. We will be free. Ukraine will be free, and of course Crimea will be free. The Donbass will be liberated. It will be one united Ukraine in NATO, EU and the Euro. I've made already many videos about why the Euro is necessary for economic reconstruction. We put many hundreds of billions of euros into Ukraine, so it's much better to have one currency. We did it for Kosovo. We must be more united. Our system works. Yeah? The OECD, the Euro and the OSCE. Why is Russia still inside? That's wrong. And Kosovo out? Wrong. Why has Ukraine not recognized Kosovo? So many things, yeah, which are really not good. So we must answer also with more unity. Unity in NATO. Austria, Malta, Ireland, Cyprus, join NATO. Obviously Moldova, join NATO. Obviously even one day Serbia and Georgia, after regime change, must join NATO. And obviously Bosnia and Kosovo must join NATO, as I have recently written this op-ed in the Kosovo media when General Wesley Clark was there. You know, Serbia to recognize Kosovo, good, but that's illusion under Vucic occupied by Russia. We need Bosnia and Kosovo in NATO, and that's what President Trump can do. I've not endorsed him, I've so endorsed Kamala, but now he's president. Let's work with him. And of course, he's hopefully in winning because Biden was not. Actually, Biden is a cold warrior. I respect him for his lifetime achievements. But he was somehow occupied or both arms held back by the Obama clique, who has been instrumental, by the way, for getting Trump elected 2016 by sidelining Biden and 2024 by pushing against Biden and bringing Kamala. Okay. I mean, Obama's grip of the Democratic Party is really is the death breath of the Democratic Party. Some should understand that. And he has delivered no single weapons in 2014. He lost Crimea, he lost Donbass. For me, I'm finished with Obama. So, situation is clear. More unity on our side and division of Russia. Defeat, division, dismantling. That's the normal international answer against aggressive empires who lose wars. Yeah? In Austrian-Hungarian Empire was dismantled, Ottoman Empire, and it was also the Turkish Empire, yes, and the Russian Empire. 4 empires dismantled at the end of World War I. Yugoslavia was dismantled. The Soviet Union was dismantled. Just written an article, it will be in the compendium of the Free Nations Forum. When I was young, now I'm 56, when I was 35 years young and trained for a military officer, it was clear, there's Yugoslavia the enemy, there's the Soviet Union the enemy, and there's the Warsaw Pact the enemy. And of course we were meant to try to defend Austria from the enemies. Yeah? 2 years later they were all gone. Ploops, gone! Soviet Union, Warsaw Pact, Yugoslavia. And of course, this is what I exactly want also now with Russia to happen. Now, if it will be 41 new states, we have made the plan, it's online. This is, of course, the very best scenario for Russia to fall into 41 new states, and we build them up again. We give them then membership in Council of Europe, in the OECD, but not Russia today. And of course, now the exile government should get a status towards as of observers to the OECD and to the Council of Europe. This is the logic. We should do that. I'm calling on my X account. Please, by the way, follow me on my X account because I'm just 400 followers below the 100, which the Austrian chief socialist, Mr. Andreas Babler, has. And I would love to overtake him and to be more on this ranking of X than the Austrian leader of the Social Democratic Party, which is the key opponent towards Austria joining NATO, because they love Russia and they have a soft spot for Stalin and all these crazy things, and I'm really upset about it. So please follow me on X, Günther Fellinger, that would be good, and I would be very much appreciating, and also give me a follow on YouTube. I have only 2,900 on my YouTube page, but I'm growing this and I hope there will be more. So, what we need to do? Weapons for Ukraine and of course Ukraine in NATO. I want to explain it again and again. This war is about Ukraine's NATO membership. It's called West integration, rearmament if you want. These are the terms we used for Western Germany, Western integration in 1955. It was very controversial, it was very complicated, and it was done. And it is entirely possible. Before the war, or the beginning of the war, I still argued, we can do a Western German model for Ukraine. And still, actually, it is possible. But as we are not ready to give Ukraine NATO membership, the war will go on as long as it takes to get Ukraine in NATO, because it's the only form of security guarantee. And this war is ultimately about that. Is Ukraine a Western country or a Russian territory? And there is no in-between, as we have learned, because the Russians do not accept the in-between, because there was an in-between, but they didn't accept it. So what makes anybody believe they will ever accept it after losing 1 million casualties in this war? And they will not. And so only the American nuclear and defense guarantee, inclusive in NATO, can stop a further Russian aggression. Otherwise, as more wiser men than me, like General Foch, have said, we make an armistice just for 20 years and have then a full-scale reinvasion. And obviously nobody wants that, so we need an American security guarantee, nuclear and defense via NATO for Ukraine. And then the war is won, Putin will have lost, he will be toppled, and the Russia will be dismantled. And exactly this fear is why the Americans under Chuck Sullivan and Obama didn't really do it, because they are afraid of that. But why? Because in history there is a long-standing love affair with Russian unity from the American establishment, because one guy to deal at the top is always easier than many small countries, chaos, danger, and then they prefer dictatorship for other people, as long as they have one guy they can do business with, who controls the nukes and who has access to the resources. And that's very, very cynical view of the world. And that's not moral foreign policy, of which I am an advocate. You have the same guys in the Republican Party, and there's a lot of Russian intervention there as well. We will come to that in that video as well. But nevertheless, this American love affair with Russian unity must end. We had it during the Russian Civil War. America was somehow fond of Russia, democratic Kerensky, and then they all ended up with the communists taking over, and 70 years of global challenge and global export of revolution followed, because we didn't support the whites, and the whites were also centralists, and nobody supported Ukraine's independence, because the Americans and the British and the French saw Ukraine as a German petty project, as a German proxy. And just that envy, that spite, that Ukraine should not be, because it might be pro-German, because the Americans don't care for Eastern Europe, and the British don't care for Eastern Europeans, and also the French don't care for Eastern Europeans, because they don't know the area, and they think it's somehow a German plot. And so they didn't recognize independent Siberia, independent Ukraine, and of course these were the most important chunks of what was at that time revolutionary Russia, and it could have both be independent, because we were already in Vladivostok in the north and in the south, and it could have been easily done if the idea of Russian segmentation, fragmentation, and also new states would have been in the head of decision makers, but it was not. And they loved the empire, and they got the Red Empire, the Soviet Union, for 70 years. And with it they get also the Nazi Empire, because the Nazi Empire in many, many ways was only possible as a response to the Soviet Union. And the 33 takeover of the Nazis in Germany was very much driven by anti-Bolshevik fear of a Bolshevik takeover of Germany, and fear of Bolshevik Russia. And that is also one of the historic truths. So without Stalin, there would have been no Hitler. And I'm not going even into the details of German coalition history, where it would have been easily to avoid Hitler's takeover if the socialists and the communists and the social democrats would have worked together before the takeover of Hitler. That's also one of the historic truths, but Stalin didn't allow it. Hello, because he as well has profited in this escalation of extremism, communism against fascism, and so the whole disaster of the Second World War has happened. And all because we don't want independent Siberia and independent Crimea and independent, at that time, and independent Ukraine. I'm not supporting independent for Crimea. I want to make it very clear, it is part of Ukraine, and Ukraine will be part of NATO, EU, and the Euro. So let's get clear. This is the historic situation of the Civil War. It's called the Russian Civil War. In reality, it was an independence war as well of Ukraine, but the Western allies gave up on Ukraine. They sacrificed Ukraine. It was brutally reconquered, and then it was suppressed and tortured, genocidal, in two phases during the Russian Civil War, and later as well during the Holodomor, the hunger genocide of Russia against the Ukrainians. And then, of course, all the disasters of the Second World War. And then when the situation came again for Russian breakup in 1990s, Russia has lost the war in Chechnya. Chechnya was free in 94. Bravo, they have won and fought for their liberation, but the West didn't recognize it. Probably. Why? Because we hate Muslims, and we somehow have fear of them, and we don't know. And then we said, having one guy in the Kremlin like Yeltsin, okay, he's a bit drunk, but still it's better to have him, and we can make deals, and we can make some business with him. And that was the deal from 1990, basically won. And even when he has stormed the parliament, he has, of course, waged the war in Chechnya and lost. and he has done many other evil things and created all this oligarchic system which we have now in Russia. And then, of course, he has stolen these elections. That was good. We supported him in 96. Then the Russian Secret Service struck back with the ruble crisis, and then it came the takeover of Putin with all the brutality, like killing the Ukrainian opposition leader and creating chaos everywhere. And all these terrible things Putin has done, even to reach power, with the climax, of course, being the apartment bombing in Ryazan, and then creating the casus belli for the reconquest of Chechnya. And then he was the president. And since then, 25 years ago, we have the disaster of a re-emerging Russia. In a way, a historic twist of fate. Again, he will be also toppled by a currency crisis because he has overspent on the Ukraine war. And, he would have probably stayed on another 15 years if not for this absolute disaster, which is his making, and he will pay the price, and Russia will be dismantled. So in a way, it's historic justice is coming to Putin and also to his old elite, which has stolen so much in the last 25 years from the Russian people and the Russian regions. And they have also lost so many people now in Ukraine. They will want freedom, and it's not us or me basically educating. I am educating, but what is my power to promote Russian segmentation, fragmentation, dismantling? Absolutely zero beyond this video and my tweets, but it is these people from Chechnya, from Karelia, from Tatarstan, from so many other of the regions everywhere in Siberia, in Tumen or in Altai, and all these names we will have to learn, as I try to make it very clear in my videos in recent weeks and months. So ultimately, they will all ask for freedom, and we should give them the opportunity, because the more we prepare the public opinion in the West, the clearer we are what to do with them. The more we can help them to avoid border wars and border conflicts or wars of reconquest of smaller to bigger republics, the more we can entice them and integrate them in the global world community of international states with the help of the institutions we have built exactly for that. The Council of Europe, the OSCE, and all the state-building mechanisms, which we, in the last 35 years, have a lot of experience because of our victory in the Cold War and because of our institutional experience, like people like me who worked as development experts and the EU accession advisors for all the 26 countries in between Germany and Russia who emerged in the last 30 years basically, but with Montenegro and Kosovo, by the way, great role models, as I always say, for the new republics. Let's compare Kosovo to Chechnya, let's compare Montenegro to Crimea. There's many of these potential role models, but what I want to say is, when I was an army officer, they were not these countries. There was just the Soviet Union, and they was occupying Eastern Europe until the Austrian border, and now they all are disappeared. Bravo, and the new emerging free democracies are actually very successful. And I'm very proud that I professionally could help many of them politically, to advocate for them, the same as I do it now for Ukraine, and also to be very active in all these fields together in the next years. And I'm very much looking forward for that. Introduce the euro, do the flat tax, to talk a bit about economics, 15% for EU countries, 10% income and corporate for EU accession countries or transition countries. This is the best model. Currency stability, obviously pegged to the euro, or best adopt to the euro, and also do all this adoption of EU market regulation. Also stabilize the energy market, that's very important. Ask the EU for subsidies, very important. Obviously, we have to pay a lot for all these countries, and that's fair, because they have to overcome this tragic legacy, and it's also much better for us to have stability by a new, free, smaller democracies. And that's basically what I call the Fellinger economics and the Fellinger doctrine. The doctrine is, it's much better to have many smaller countries who are better, freer societies and market economies than to have one big evil empire. Very simple and very clear. And we have seen that in so many cases. And this is, of course, working much better for the people. And the best example is the success of Southeastern Europe, where I've worked the last 20 years. And from Kosovo, Montenegro, North Macedonia, they all work much better as ever in the history. And they will be great members of the EU, NATO. Many of them are already, like the three NATO members, Albania, Kosovo, Montenegro, and they should, of course, be rewarded now, fast-tracked into the European Union very fast, the same as Kosovo and Bosnia in NATO and in the EU, and then, of course, also Ukraine in NATO, in the EU and the Euro, and this is simply what we do. And by the way, all the other EU countries who have not the Euro, get a grip, adopt the Euro. This is the only logical thing. From Sweden, Denmark to Poland to Hungary, Czech Republic, who else is there? Romania, Bulgaria. Bulgaria first in, and of course in Schengen, of course, and also Romania. Excuse my language, I was very angry because they were upsetting me by being rude to Kosovo, because for some Orban populist, nationalistic disaster in Scalaland, that's a Hungarian minority in Romania. They don't recognize Kosovo, and they make some orthodox friendship with genocidal Serbia, and they have provoked the football game, and I have then called for Romania not to be in Schengen. We should block them, but in reality, let them in, but Romania get a grip and recognize Kosovo. How can anybody not recognize Kosovo who is in the EU and NATO? Yeah, it's outrageous. Yeah? If you want to be in some orthodox union, go to Russia. Really. It's so annoying, and I'm really upset about all these things, because we are 2024, we have now 2008 recognized Kosovo and the independence. Most countries have, 100 have, and most international Western free market powers, and then comes Cyprus and Greece and imposes her Serbian Orthodox agenda on us, and their own internal fragilities like Spain. Get a grip, really. Yes, it is beyond understanding. And Slovakia, please. Yes. Yes, let's come a little bit also, because it's 1,000 days. Obviously, Russia has done a major genocide in Mariupol, and we should call it like this. Putin must be in Den Haag. He is already indicted, and he should be prosecuted. In absentia, obviously, but definitely Russia should be isolated from all international organizations. Today is G20, and Russia is still around. I think it's just Lavrov hanging out, but of course that's absolutely unacceptable. So we need really to get the Russians out of the UN, of the G20, out of OSCE, and there are certainly other organizations as well, and get them out. Isolate Russia, boycott Russia, embargo Russia, no Russian energy on the European market. I was a bit fooled by the Austrian announcement that they don't buy any Russian gas anymore. It's still there, the Russian gas in Austria, but it's just not bought by the state energy company. So, but if Ukraine, and please Ukraine, cut the pipeline, cut the pipeline gas and don't renew the transit agreement, and no circumventions like in Hungary. Please, no Russian gas, no Russian energy on any European market. Everybody who takes Russian energy should be excluded from the EU Recovery Fund. As long as they take Russian energy, supposedly cheap, then no EU subsidies for them. And I have great hope that now reason will come back to European politics with Ursula von der Leyen. Of course, many Russian agents try still to block her, and there's a lot of question marks now for the 1st of December start. But she is a great leader, she has a great team, I fully endorse her. And if Friedrich Merz will be German Chancellor, and now this coalition of pro-Europeans will be built in Austria, that would be very good. And please add NATO membership, hey, Mr. Karl Nehammer. But nevertheless, here is the thinking I have, and I'm very positive. We can, with Friedrich Merz, achieve great things. The Taurus can be released, Ukraine can be fully supported, and 2025 will see the victory of the West over the forces of the evil Axis. And if the Israelis really go and attack Iran, that would be, of course, not just the air defense as they have done, but a much deeper strike. That would be also very good, and I hope for that. And our enemies will be defeated, and we will build a much better world order, not basically the same world order, but enlarged with more membership and with everybody in OECD, and of course without Russia blocking everything, and of course without Russia and Iran actively waging war against us in Ukraine and in Israel, and that would be, and in Syria, and that would be much, much better. Yeah, we can then also solve situations like Syria, and also defend South Korea if the North Koreans go crazy. And so we have a much better world ahead of us. And please know there is no danger of nuclear war, because nuclear war will not happen if they don't attack Russia, because that's basically the logic. Even when they have changed the doctrine, once you start nuclear war, Russia will be annihilated, and destroyed completely, because our nukes work and the Russians do not work. And if they work, we will destroy them at the launching point. And nevertheless, the logic is simply there will be no nuclear war, because there was never a nuclear war, and there won't be, because of this nuclear mutually assured destruction, which the Russians also learn very well. And no system like Russia is completely suicidal. And that would be the case. And there was no nuclear confrontation in 1991. And there will be none in 2025, when Russia will be dismantled. And also when now the strikes against the Russians come with American weapons via Ukraine, that is also not a reason for a nuclear war, because nuclear war always comes to full escalation, because that's the logic of nuclear weapons. And so there won't be one point. And so the rest is just fear and incompetence. And we should also have more nuclear weapons in Europe. I cannot understand, after 2.5 years, 1,000 days of war, that we still have only 100 nuclear weapons from America in Western Europe. Why don't we have 1,000, as I call for all the time on my Nuclear Sundays, which you can follow on my Twitter account, please. So let's get going. Good, nuclear deterrence works, and let's include Ukraine in the nuclear deterrent. Let's station American and NATO troops and American nuclear weapons west of the Dnieper in Ukraine. And then the war will be very fast over. If Trump wants to win and end this war in one day, it's very simple. Move in F-35s, put American nuclear weapons on them, put them towards west of the Dnieper, say, and that's now basically our nuclear protection line. And then the Ukrainian army can all move into the east to win the war. They don't have to defend the border with Belarus, and they don't have to defend the border with the EU, and they can really move their whole entire fighting army into that position and fight at the front and win this war. And anyhow, alone the symbolic moves will already make it very clear to the Russian elite that we have won and Russia has lost, and that will basically be the end of Putin. And then the whole process of dismantlement can start, which nobody can stop, also not Chuck Sullivan or somebody else. I wish him all the best in retirement, but he is responsible for so many Ukrainian deaths that I wish him actually nothing good. So let's be happy he is out, and let's be very sure that Ukraine wins and that we have peace very fast, because this is Pax Europiana. We all want peace. We just want not the peace of torture chambers, the peace of death. We don't want to have peace, rest in peace, dead. You know, who wants this kind of peace for Ukraine? The peace of death, he's not a real friend, I would say, of Ukraine. What we want is the peace by victory, liberation, and the peace of freedom. And freedom is always the higher value than peace, because ultimately nobody wants to be in a torture chamber of Putin at his mercy, or in the head of a firing squad or some other kind of tanks crushed under that one. And there were always American politicians who were ready to sacrifice Eastern Europeans for their tranquility, but we are not in that world anymore, and this has to come to a stop. We must extend the border of freedom east, and Ukraine is included and under the nuclear umbrella. And then it is also very clear that Ukraine must be fully in the EU, Euro and NATO, OECD, Schengen, and all the other Western institutions, and that will be very successful. Talking about economics as well, the next 30 years, I would estimate the most successful of the world up to now, similar as the last 30 years, 35 years of freedom, were already the most successful in our history. We have basically from 5.5 billion people to 8 billion people, 8 billion people on this beautiful planet. And we have also now from 22 billion, it's now 100 trillion, 22 trillion to 104 times more GDP in 35 years. This is the peace dividend. This is the peace generation. This is the victory of the Cold War generation. And we will know of that. And with dismantling Russia, and the Russians will live much better in many new states because that's basically the idea. When a state doesn't provide for people security and prosperity as a fundament, then let's reorganize it and splinter it in many more states, and it will be much better. As I said, the Fellinger doctrine. Yes, this is my video for half an hour on the occasion of 1000 days. I have this article online on my Substack. If you want to see written material, I recommend you to follow the Free Nations of Russia forum to prepare for a much better future of a dismantled Russia of 41 states. I recommend you and ask you if you can subscribe to my YouTube channel, if you can follow me on X, that would be very good. Or also I'm on LinkedIn for business, and I'm also on Instagram, so I am very active on different NGO activities. So I'm very active on all channels, and I call for victory of Ukraine and a peace of victory and the defeat of Russia. Slava Ukraine, and my deepest respect for all the heroes who are fighting. We can do and we should do whatever we can, industrially, politically, financially, and in all other aspects to support Ukraine's victory by full liberation and full integration into the Western institutions, NATO, EU, and the Euro. Thanks a lot. This is Günther Fellinger Jan, and I am sure we will win in 2025. Thanks a lot. All the best for victory. Slava Ukraine.